And it is now my pleasure to welcome Miss Courtney Laughlin. Courtney, how's it going? And thank you so much for joining us today.
It's good. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. Anytime I get to talk hockey, it's like a dream come true.
Yeah, definitely awesome for us as well. So, like most of our interviews, we kind of just want to start off. If you could tell us a little bit about, where you grew up. And then usually the question that follows this is how you got into hockey. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that one, but why don't you go ahead and tell us anyways?
Oh, what, does the last name give it away or something?
A little bit.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Maryland pretty much my entire life from the DMV area. When I was really little, I was traveling with my dad when he was traded, when he was traded from the Cavs to LA and back. But that's kind of how I guess I got into hockey. I got to be honest though, I hated hockey growing up. I have an older brother. He played hockey, and as like the little sister, I've been dragged around to rinks since I was like 2 or 3. And I was like, this isn't for me. I don't like hockey. I was a figure skater. And then one day, I woke up and I was like, hey, that sport looks pretty cool. I've been watching it my entire life, been dragged around to rinks, watched every single one of my brother's games. And I was like, that looks cool. Like, he's hanging out with my dad. My mom's invested. So I was like, I think I want to play. So I think I was like in 6th grade. Finally picked up the skates and the stick and started playing hockey. Played for a lot of boys teams at the time. There weren't a lot of girls hockey in the area, in the DMV area. And then from there, it's just kind of been my passion. And here I am talking more hockey with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So what sort of programs were you involved in locally? I know a huge amount of our listeners are local that, these guys came up through the Baltimore program. I played in the Montgomery program. So what organization were you with?
So I started with the Chesapeake Bay Chiefs at Piney Orchard is where I think I started my club hockey. And then from there, I went into the Little Caps organization, and they had kind of started my dad helped start a women's program there. So it was the Washington Lady Capitals. Played there for a couple years. And so I pretty much grew up playing here in that organization. The Lady Caps aren't a thing anymore. But that was Kush Sadhu started that program now with the Pride in Montgomery. So he had a big hand in helping to grow women's hockey, but there wasn't a lot of women's hockey when I was growing up here. And it's incredible now to see how much it's grown with so many programs in Annapolis and Baltimore and Montgomery and Columbia. But that really wasn't a thing when I was growing up. There was 1 or 2 programs, and that was it. And so my final year, I actually ended up taking a PG year and went up to Princeton to play for the Princeton Tiger Lilies. So that was a trip, because I'm sure you guys know when you're traveling to ice rinks, it's 2.5 hours each way. So it was just a great commitment to my family and my parents to do that. But again, just all of those, none of those local programs that exist now, especially for women's hockey, kind of existed when I played.
Sure. It really is amazing to see how much it's grown. I mean, I'm sure for you and even for us, just, from when I started to, looking at it now, I mean, it's really exploded, and it's great to see that. What was it like growing up with a dad in the NHL? I feel like it's just so hard for me to process, but at what age did it sort of click, okay, this is pretty cool?
I don't know if it's even clicked yet. And I'm 33 years old, and I don't think it's clicked yet. I don't know. I think the one thing for me is, again, when I started playing hockey, I don't think I realized how much he knew and how much he was going to push me. And it was hard, right? Because he coached me in a lot of those women's programs that I talked about. And I was like, shoot, this is my dad. I guess I have to listen to him because he played in the NHL. He knows what he's talking about. So I think that was always a challenge for me. And especially I don't know, being a girl, I was like, you're not going to tell me what to do. But he did. And so I think sometimes it was hard to especially have him as a coach, and given everything that he had accomplished, that I guess I had to listen to him when he tried to push me and to try to get me to get better at hockey. But to me, he's just dad. He's just someone that, yeah, I guess I see him on TV occasionally, but I mean, he comes home, we talk hockey, just like I'm doing with you guys here. So to me, it's no different. And maybe I still don't know what he's done.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious, what position did you play mostly, or did you kind of switch it up a lot?
I was a forward, center, and then I realized that I was like, that's way too much skating. Stick me on the wing, and I'll be happier playing the wing. In college, I played center or wing, but forward, I was not a defenseman.
Do you want to touch on your college experience?
Sure. So I mentioned that I played for the Princeton Tiger Lilies. I did a PG year. And then from there, I went upstate New York and played. Both my parents, my dad had a hockey career at Clarkson University. They were NCAA Division I. And then there was a school in the same town. It's hard to believe that Potsdam, New York has two colleges in Potsdam. And so I went to SUNY Potsdam. They had actually just started a Division III women's program. And so I was part of that and building that program. They're a very great program now. And I think they even started like a new league in upstate New York with their own women's SUNYAC league. So I played for SUNY Potsdam. And then after that, so small Division III school, after that, I actually spent 2 years as the women's assistant coach there. So a lot of hockey.
Awesome.
Hockey's been my passion, I guess, since after I quit figure skating.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a question, and I'm gonna probably get roasted for this. Why is the word SUNY in like all the New York schools? Am I missing something?
State University of New York. So it's a state
God.
school.
That's not good. I should know that because I know people that went to like SUNY Onieta or whatever it's called. I was always like, why is it called? Why does that have that in there?
Because so they're like all part of. So like Maryland has it, right? Like University of Maryland, UMBC, right? Like so it's all part of that state school of New York thing. So they're all connected. So it's just like SUNY Potsdam, SUNY Oswego, SUNY Geneseo, SUNY whatever.
Okay.
That's a good question.
I'm gonna get roasted for that. Don't you worry.
What was the whole transition from figure skating to hockey like? Did you find it like I can just skate circles around these guys now, or was that a big adjustment for you?
To this day, my figure skating coach, and she's a very good friend of our family. She worked for a very long time with the Washington Capitals. Still says I'm the worst skater she's ever seen. So I don't think the transition was that great because I still to this day skate like a figure skater because I think I'd been figure skating for so long that I kind of started hockey relatively late. I was like in 6th grade. So the transition I don't think helped me very much. And so skating was never my strong suit, but neither wasn't my dad's either. So it must run in the family.
What age did you make that switch?
Oh gosh. I mean, 12, 13.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was in 6th grade when I finally woke up and I was like, I want to play hockey.
Wow.
Can you talk kind of fundamentally? I think our listeners would be interested in sort of the fundamental differences between figure skating and the type of skating you have to do for hockey. We mentioned that there is differences, but what are some of those main differences that you find?
So the first thing, I mean, is the skate, right? I mean, figure skates have a toe pick. And so you're used to kind of skating a little bit more on your toes. And then it just literally just the anatomy of the skate is totally different. Hockey skates is just more of a rockered position. And again, I'm not a skating expert, never was. It just the stride and how you skate is completely different. A lot of things are still similar, right? Like the balance is still the same and figuring out how to skate on the edge, but it's those edges that are different because figure skates are just like flat. They don't have the same edges that hockey skates do on either side. And the biggest thing is the toe pick. Like a lot of times I'd skate and I want to like go forward on my toes, and well, that didn't work. I fell flat on my face. So just kind of learning those differences of the skate blade, but I didn't really have that big of a problem because I'd been on skates since I was 2 anyway, so the balance wasn't a problem. But just like little things like that, like just learning the differences in the skate blade, really.
So, you mentioned that did you say assistant coach after you were done school? So how has your career kind of stayed involved in hockey post graduation?
So after I decided to leave coaching in upstate New York, I was upstate for 6 years. And as much as I loved, like, it was great. I'm miles away from my family. They can't get to me unless they drive 500 miles because there's no airport. I'm like, this is great. Dad's not going to know what I'm doing. But then I was like, I kind of wanted to further my education a little bit. So I came back home. I went to Georgetown. I got my master's in sports marketing. And kind of from there, I studied a lot of things about social media. Still trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do, but I still knew that, like, look, hockey has been in my life my entire life. And I was like that girl in class. I was like, I want to work in the NHL. And everyone's like, I want to work in the NFL. I want to work in the NFL. And I was like, but I want to work in hockey.
Relatable.
And I was like that. They're like, you want to work in what? And it was just something that I just always wanted to do. And so from there, NBC Sports Washington was starting a new position as they needed a social media kind of, I guess, correspondent, where they mimicked what the Today Show did with like the Orange Room. And they kind of had this new position opened, and I went for it. I was like, this is great. I can take what I've learned about social media and engaging fans and also talk about hockey. So I was kind of thrown into this TV world where I was talking hockey a little bit, but really just kind of monitoring what was happening in social media and trying to engage the fans. And so I was on the pre and post game show for the Cats, I guess, starting 7 years ago.
Yeah, I can remember pretty vividly when that happened. And what was that like? You know, I feel like, you know, it's easy for us to like, you know, I'm here in my house. It looks like you are too.
Yeah.
Here's the camera. I'm pretty comfy right now. But what's it like actually being on set on camera? Is that, you know, a pretty big adjustment to make?
I was so nervous. And I remember because I was kind of new to it, right? Like, it's not like I had gone to broadcasting school or had studied broadcasting. I'd obviously watched my dad do it for so many years. And I remember they were like, okay, Courtney, you're going to come in and we're going to give you dress rehearsals because we want you to get, like, you need to know where to stand. You need to know where the camera is, how to put on the mic and all these things. And I remember my dad was like, okay, great. He's like, I'm going to bring in Joe B. I'm going to come in and we're going to like show you everything. And I was like, I think they made me cry because Joby was like, when you have a 3-shot, you have to look there and then you do this, but never show your back. And then my dad's like, Courtney, make sure. And I was like, I was like, you guys just like need to leave. And again, all with like the biggest heart. They were just trying to help me. Right. But it was a lot to learn because I had never really been in broadcasting, and it was just like, okay, here you go. And I remember like my first live show was like the lights come on, they're like, you're live, and I was like, now what?
I'd throw up on the spot.
Yeah, I just kind of had to like fly by the seat of my pants and kind of learn it as I go.
Was it hard to like look at the camera? Like, I feel like I can't focus on one spot for more than 2 seconds anyway. So
yeah.
Yes. And one of the things that when I started, and again, television and pregame shows and production has changed so much, right? Like we're able to do this like this. And even like when you go into the studio, things have changed so much that a lot of the times the anchors or whoever was hosting the show would have a teleprompter, right? So everything would be like at their speed, how they were reading it, what they wanted to say. And I was like, well, this will be easy. I'm just going to type what I want to say and put it on the teleprompter, until my boss was like, nope, no teleprompter. You can't use a teleprompter. Everything needs to be like fly by the seat of the pants. We want it to be casual. We want it to be conversation. And so what I did was I took notes literally like this in Sharpie, just like my dad, and I would stick it underneath the camera. And that was kind of my notes. And then that also taught me to make sure that I looked at the camera without looking at the teleprompter, with kind of my notes of what I wanted to talk about underneath.
Very cool. Speaking of notes, I noticed that was a very organized pad you just showed us. Yes. And then I did see something online the other day of your dad's notes where it looks like someone dropped a hand grenade on the desk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to piece together what his notes are. Half the time, I don't even know how he does it, but he's got a method. And I mean, he uses the Sharpies, so I use the Sharpies to write the notes. But whatever works for him, whatever gets him to do the call, I guess we just say, hey, to you.
Right. As long as he knows what he means, that's all that matters. I think my favorite thing that your dad does is when he telestrates. I know that's probably one of his favorites too. Joe B is always kind of giving him some flack for it, but he's so good at kind of breaking things down, especially for just the casual hockey fan. I always feel like he does a good job of kind of welcoming people that may not know as much about hockey, and breaking down plays and kind of explaining to them what they just saw. So I've always kind of admired that.
Yeah, I remember, and I hear my mom kind of tell this story all the time. Like when my dad first got the job, and even for me, kind of entering a new role after I kind of stopped the social media, where I was like breaking down games and talking about things. And I remember my mom just always saying, hey, like, talk to like you would talk to your buddies at a bar or at a house party and explain the game to them like that, right? And I think that helped my dad try to figure out how to explain it in a way that people could understand. And same thing with me, like whenever I talk hockey, I'm like, okay, how do I try to explain it in a way that maybe somebody didn't see it? Just like I was sitting at a bar or hanging out here with you guys, just talking hockey, and we're just talking how I would see it.
It's tough. It really is, especially kind of like in the area that, you're familiar just like us with, is that, a lot of people are new,
Right.
especially over the last 10 years or so, and trying to get them up to speed and explain everything and the rule of offsides. And sometimes last year you had to have your foot down. Now you don't. And like, it's a lot for people to comprehend. I get asked about icing all the time. That's probably the most frequent one.
And it's hard to know, like, where is that line, right? Like, where is that line where like you're gonna lose your followers or you're gonna lose people when you're talking hockey, or like how much hockey and how much, like, don't even get me started with like analytics. How much analytics are we gonna throw in there? And then where does the casual fan maybe drop off there? So I think it's hard sometimes to kind of find your voice and like, what do you want to say? How do you want to say it, and like to who?
Right. So I'm curious to get your perspective on this, because it sounds like you've thought about this a bit. Is one of the biggest complaints that I see is that people can't see the puck. I feel like that's pretty common, right? So, and you've watched enough hockey just like us, where you might not even have to see the puck. You can just tell based on body language. If it's in the corners or on the wall, you can kind of tell by shoulder movements or, where someone's looking. What do you think could help the TV presentation appeal to the more casual fan? I know that's a loaded question.
It's crazy because I would say like cameras, right? But like, how many more high definition cameras do we need? Like, they've already increased that, but that would be my biggest thing. And I hate's a strong word. I strongly dislike watching hockey on TV for that reason, because you can't see the whole play develop, right? Like, you can't see, or you see a play develop and then you see something happen behind the play. And actually, I was just talking to my dad about that this morning. And that, so they do their broadcast, their home games they do from the arena, but their away games they do from the studio. And they have the same problem. Him and Joe B are having the same issue this season, is when they're calling the games from the studio, they're watching the same feed that we're watching. Whereas where they're at the arena and they're sitting up in the 600 on the 6th floor, they see the whole play develop and they can see something happening behind the play. Maybe Tom Wilson sucker punches some guy behind the play and the camera's not catching it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what they could do to enhance. To me, it's the visual. They've talked about all these tracking things and putting the little bugs that say Tom Wilson's played 47 seconds on the ice and whatever. I don't know if that's not what I would want to see enhance the game. You gotta, I don't know, you gotta be able to see the whole picture somehow.
Yeah, and I know they tried that thing in like the 90s with like the blue line that would like follow the puck, and I don't think that landed very well. And I feel like you said, like, adding a camera or something like that. I feel like, the next step would be to do sort of what the NFL does, where they have that camera on a cable that goes across the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then, when we hopefully can get people back in the arena, that's probably going to start to obstruct some views. So,
Right.
yeah, I feel like there is really no right answer, but it definitely is. Like, I have people, when I am able to get playoff tickets and I'm sitting, behind the goal, but like way up in the 400s, everyone's like, oh, but you're sitting up high. I'm like, yeah, but I can see everything. It's the best seat in the house.
Yeah. You can see all the plays develop, and you're not missing anything that happens like behind a play.
Yeah, it's true. There's no perfect answer, although I will say maybe the answer is to get people to go to a hockey game, because it's true that there's really no better experience than just seeing it live.
Are there any moments that stand out to you in the past? I think you said 7 years, where you were either on set or you're behind the scenes, and it was like, oh, whoa, this is a pretty cool job moment. I mean, obviously, I'm sure every day is like that, but is there one that stands out?
Probably covering the Caps winning the cup.
Classic.
Would be. I mean, anything with the Caps winning the cup, I feel like is on like top one. No, that was a really cool moment, and I think we did all the games from, at least in the Stanley Cup final against Vegas, we did all the games down in front of the arena, and I just remember that moment of being like, I'm talking about the Caps. They're playing in Game 5 versus Vegas, and I was the only woman too on that set that was talking Caps at the time. And I remember my dad coming out and I was like, holy, like, I'm with my dad. The Caps just won the cup. I'm about to go on air and talk about it. He's talking about it. So I think for me, that was just a really cool thing to be able to experience that moment with him, not just as his daughter, but like as a coworker and as somebody that was covering the Caps. I don't know. It was cool. I'm getting like goosebumps just thinking about
it. No, I get it. Curious, what are your thoughts on the Vegas, like, setup, like the arena, the surrounding area, the arena itself? Any thoughts? I've been there. It's one of the best.
So I haven't been.
Oh,
so we did all the games from home, from in front of Capital One Arena, every game.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misinterpreted.
No, that's okay. I'm very jealous because that was like on my every time, like last year I was like, oh, when are they playing in Vegas? I want to go. And so I never got to go. So I'm very jealous right now.
They have a great
everything
setup.
On TV. It looks amazing.
No, they do. I mean, I've never been to Montreal or Toronto or, anywhere that's like one of the historic places, but they have a great atmosphere there. I'll give them credit.
Looks like they do a great like pregame show and
yeah, it's Vegas. Everything's a show, right? What was it like to watch your dad's reaction when that team won the Stanley Cup?
I feel like he was like on the verge of, he wasn't about to cry, but he was just like, so like what, like kind of all of us we're like, what is happening? I will say this. So we did so it's like our whole crew, myself, Rob Carlin, Alan May, Al Koken, Grant Paulson was there. We all were kind of like dispersed to watch the game because we were media. We didn't have tickets, right? And so and they were in Vegas at the time. So we were in the NBC Sports Washington suite watching the game. And it was like 7 minutes left. And we had to go back out on set. Since my show was the later show, I was like, I'm going to stay in here. I want to watch it on TV because it's like chaotic once you go out on the set. You're like watching on a little screen like this. You're like, what's happening? So my dad left. And I remember one of the guys was like, Courtney, he's like, get the beer in the beer fridge and put it in your bag and bring it out on set because we think the Caps are going to win. So he's like, when you come out, load up your bag. He's like, bring it out on the set. So I did. And we get out there and obviously they won. Like we're celebrating all these things. My dad, like hand my dad my bag. And he's like, this is awesome. Alan May's taking a beer. This is after their show was done. And so like they were like drinking all this beer. And after we got done, like we didn't get done that show probably till like 2:30 in the morning. And I was like, this is amazing. I finally get to celebrate. They drank all the beer. Like all the beer was gone. And I was like, are you kidding? I'm the one that physically took it out of the fridge and you guys were celebrating drinking on the stage. But I was like, all right, like you guys deserve that. Dad, Alan May, like you guys have been part of this franchise a lot longer than I have. So you deserve the beer.
I remember that pretty vividly. I was one of the ones that was in the arena watching it for Game 5 for that viewing party. And I remember bumping into Michael Jenkins, me and my friends, when we were coming back from the bathroom. And he was just like, I felt like he was like about to explode. He was so on edge. It was right before the third period. And I feel like I can't remember anything from that third period except for those 2 goals and just wanting to throw up the entire time.
Me too. I had the same feelings. I was like, this is happening, right? This is happening. It's really happening.
What are you doing with this podcast that you have now? I noticed it's Family Faceoff, right?
Yeah. So Family Faceoff, it's a project that my dad and I have been wanting to do for quite some time. We kind of dabbled in it a little bit a couple years ago with Monumental, where we did Family Faceoff with their platform. And so it's just something that we've kind of always wanted to do after it ended there. And with my dad not traveling because of everything happening, he has a little bit more time, right? I mean, and with the shortened season, but I mean, he would never be home. He was barely home. And when he came home, he'd want to sleep. And then he was preparing for the next game because it's just like a very grueling, tough schedule, as you guys know, especially with all the travel. And so we've kind of started this new podcast, Family Faceoff, I guess 2.0, and we're talking hockey, we do lifestyle, we do beer. And so it's just like a fun project that I've just always wanted to do, that we've always wanted to do together, to talk hockey. I don't think there's another father-daughter duo in the NHL, let alone any other sport, that's doing anything like this. So it's fun. We have fun. And it's like, I get to work with my dad, which is great, but then also not so great. Cause I'm like, sometimes I'm like, you're annoying me, Dad. But I can't really say that because he's my dad.
Is he pretty hands-on with it? I mean, how like serious do you take it, if you don't mind me asking that?
No, so right now, like we're all in. Actually, before this recording, like we've been sitting creating stuff for our podcast since 10 this morning. Full video, full production. We're working with a good friend of ours. They have a platform called Real Fun DC, and so we're working with them on the production end to make it a full video show. And we love it. I love it. It's fun. It's interesting, not fun. Sometimes it's not fun to work with my dad because I'll be like, Dad, here's what we're talking about. He's like, yeah, that's great. And then the next day he'd be like, so Court, what are we talking about? I'm like, I sent you the rundown. Do you not know what we're talking about? So it's a fun project that we're very excited about, and we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to make it fun and different and incorporate a lot of different elements of lifestyle stuff into it.
Is there anything different or any challenge that you noticed that you're facing with podcasting as opposed to, broadcasting on television?
Totally. The way that like you talk, right? So when I first got into broadcasting, it was like, you need to be succinct. You need to like know exactly what you're going to say. Everything's going to be prepared. You finish your sentences. And it's like all of that training that I've tried so hard to do for the last 7 years. It's like, that's just poof, gone out the window. And it's like, now you just like turn on the mic and you talk. And sometimes I still find, even this morning, I was like, oh shoot, I just talked in like in a broadcaster's voice, didn't I? And they're like, yeah. They're like, yeah, you did. So just trying to find that different podcasting voice, right? Where you're just like chatting.
Oh yeah, we would never make it on television.
Yeah, that's just arguing over each other until someone's either the loudest or, you just move on to the next thing. So,
but that's entertaining, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what makes it entertaining. And I tried that to like, even today, I was like, I wanted to like jump in and like cut my dad off, but I was like, I can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I can. Actually, it's a podcast. Yes, I can.
Go for it. You mentioned that you guys not only talk about lifestyle and hockey, but beer specifically. What is the beer of choice in the household? I have to ask.
Okay, so I'm not like a total beer drinker. I'm more of a wine. My dad's like a super IPA guy. Like he likes like the weird stuff. It's out of my league, like double IPAs and hops and Citra. And I'm just like, give me a bottle of red wine and I'm fine.
What's the go-to bottle of red wine? How about that?
I really like Mayomi. That's like my go-to, Mayomi or La Crema. Yep. I like Pinot Noirs. Also, I've really gotten into like the Boda boxes.
Okay.
I really Very cool. Like those. The white. I think it's I don't know, one of the whites I like.
The boxes are popular. Everybody loves them.
I don't know why. And like I just like got into them. I was always like, nah, and I don't really love white wine, but I was like, this is like real. I think you don't want to know how many I've gone through, but a lot.
Wine language is its own thing. I'm still trying to pick it up. It's slowly coming, but a long ways away.
Yeah, it's a whole another world out there when it comes to wines.
I used to bartend at like a steakhouse place, so I actually had to take like a wine class, and I felt like that even before that I could sort of just fake it if you knew like 2 key words, like say body, tannin, and like finish, and then you can just sort of like, oh yeah, that finish is nice or something like that, and then someone will be like, oh okay, really, wow.
Wait, I want to know, what are those things? Like what?
So body, like, Pinot Noir versus like a cab. A cab's like a little bit fuller, so it's going to have a more full body. That dryness you get on your tongue, that's tannin. So like when you taste like a cab that's a little bit more dry versus a Pinot Noir that's a little bit more sweet, that's the difference right there.
But see, now we'll never know if this is you faking it.
This is what they made me learn.
I'm surprised you didn't shout out the restaurant. Just kidding.
No, I don't work there anymore. It's okay.
Oh, I never knew that. When I have my glass of Mayomi later after this, I'm going to be like, this is a little less bodied or more full.
There you go.
It's Bartending 101 with Nick. It's a new segment.
Interesting. All right.
So what's next? Family Faceoff now. What's sort of the next thing on your horizon?
Right now, that's all I got. All chips are in for that. Hoping to, obviously, we want to get some sponsors is the ultimate goal with that. and see what we can do with it. It's unfortunate. I'm not back with NBC Sports Washington this season, so that was a little bit of a disappointment for me because it's something that I've been doing for the last 7 years. So just trying to find ways to engage with Caps fans, I think, whether it's through Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and just try to see if we can make something with Family Faceoff, really. But I love hockey. I love Caps. And so, look, you guys know this industry's tough.
Sure.
So just kind of see where I can go with that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the team so far this season, and what do you think the sort of, realistic goal for them is this year?
Their division, I think, is the toughest. They have one of the toughest divisions. I have been pleasantly surprised kind of with everything. I've been pleasantly surprised with the goaltenders, starting from when they signed Lundqvist, and then that was a disappointment with everything that happened with him. And then Vanacek steps in with Samsonov out. I think Vanacek could steal the number 1 spot from the way that he's playing. I've been impressed with their lines and their scoring depth and their defense. I love the new system that they're playing under Laviolette. I think it's something that we've all kind of been craving. To me, it's more creative. It's more fun to watch. I feel like the last couple of years of the Caps, it was kind of like the same old, and they didn't have that fun energy. Like, hockey's supposed to be fun, right? It's supposed to be creative. You're supposed to make creative plays and just look like you're enjoying it. So I've been pleasantly surprised, to be honest, given everything, given who they lost and giving the new coach. I like it. Especially the game against the Islanders, I was like, that's like the fun Caps, and the way that they fought back and they won, giving all the adversity that they had been through. Like, that's fun to watch, right? I love that. I love the adversity. I've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think last night was a perfect example of just what the new system looks like. I feel like that Justin Schultz game-winning goal is a goal that doesn't happen under Todd Reardon's Capitals.
Right.
I think it was a perfect example of kind of what Laviolette wants to bring to the table. And I talked to a lot of my friends last night after the game that are big Caps fans. And I talked to my dad too. And even he said that last night was one of his favorite regulation wins that he can remember in a really long time. So I would like to echo that. I'm pleased with the way those games have been going recently.
It kind of reminded me when I was watching that game last night of, I can't remember which game it was, but in the Penguins series when they had like Tom Wilson was out, right? Like, wasn't Nick Backstrom injured? And we're like, everyone's just like, how the heck are they going to pull this out and beat the Penguins? And I remember having that same feeling of like, well, next man up, who's going to step up? And you see all the guys in the lineup step up. So I think it also shows great things with the Caps' depth, something that we've all kind of been like, who's in the pipeline who can step up and play for them? So to have guys like Carr and Scarbosa and Sprong kind of all get into the lineup and they have a win that's like that triumphant, I think is exciting for Caps fans to see.
Was that the Islanders game last night? What is it? Schultz and Sprong scored? Was those the two goals? And who was was there a third one or no?
Wasn't it Carlson?
Yeah, Carlson on the power play.
2x Pens. I see how it is. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the Penguins fan on the pod, so I always get.
What? You guys didn't tell me that before you roped me into coming on here.
We don't like to talk about it. It's sort of like, the whole black sheep thing. You got to just
sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
It's not important.
It's kind of how it works. Yeah. It's a long. Do you want the run? Do you want the
score? Yeah.
So my dad growing up was a huge Baltimore Skipjacks fan. He used to go to all the games. And there was a player named Bennett Wolf who would get in a ton of fights. Steve Worth is a pro shop manager at Mount Pleasant Ice Rink, actually, and he played for Skipjacks too. Michel Therrien did, I think, as well. And so they were the farm team for the Penguins. And my dad traveled for work, and he did a lot of work with hospitals in Pittsburgh, so he was always there, and he got traveling there a lot when Lemieux got drafted, and they were basically like the head up of the Baltimore farm team, and I didn't have a choice. So
even living in Maryland.
Yeah, I have a picture of me in a Darius Kasparaitis jersey at 4 years old, right outside Mellon Arena with my with my mom and my dad. So I've been there since the start. It's been good lately, obviously, but not a bandwagon. I can at least say that.
Okay, so then from your, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So then from your, like, what do you think of the Penguins this year?
I'm
honest opinion.
I was not optimistic. In our season previews, I think I mentioned that I see them probably as the 5th seed.
It's gonna be tight.
Yeah, they'll be 5th or 4th. I don't think it'll be any higher than that. I can acknowledge that our clock is ticking. I thought the Rangers would come out to a lot hotter of a start than they have, which is giving me a little bit of hope. But the fact that they've kind of not found their stride yet, and the Penguins look somewhat competent, surprisingly. We'll see. I'm thinking like a fourth seed in the division, squeak in the playoffs. We'll see.
So that means you're putting the Caps at 3rd?
I think the Caps will win the division. I picked them.
Yeah. Wow.
I think you guys as a fan base, and when we had Ian from Russian Machine on last week, you guys are hard on him. I feel like I feel like you don't realize how good you guys are sometimes. I don't know. I think the Caps are very good. I think their defense is going to be stellar. Schultz is obviously, when Schultz finds his groove, you're gonna love him a lot. And last night I think he's showing that he's going to find that. I think there's a lot of upside with some of the depth guys. Sprong is a wild card. If he catches fire, he could be a second line sniper. You never know. So yeah, I have the Caps winning the division.
Do you guys? The other guys on here have the Caps winning the division? That's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard a Penguins fan say that the Caps are going to win the division.
We got to give Harry some credit. He's an honest hockey fan. He'll be the first to criticize the Penguins when it's time to do so. But
like the second game of the year, he will go scorched earth on his team.
I wrote a blog on the first game of the year saying the season was over, so it happened.
I know you're saying Caps fans are too hard on the Caps.
I'm hard. I am hard on the Penguins.
You're very hard on the Penguins. So, in our season preview, so before any of the games started, Harrison and I both picked the Caps to win the division. But I'm also a bit of a homer, and even when deep down I think that the Caps might not be able to do it, I feel like I have too much heart and too much belief in them. So I kind of always convince myself that they'll be good.
I had them finishing 2nd, and I had Philly winning just because that team terrifies me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're good.
I think I had the Caps 3rd. Actually, I think I had Philly, Boston, Caps, and then it was like a pick one, throw one. I don't know. Islanders, else. Pittsburgh, Rangers. I mean, at that point.
That's the thing. It's like, what do you say about the Islanders? Like, we all say the same thing every year. Oh, we don't think they're going to make it. And if they do, they're a bubble team. And then last year, look what happens, right? So it's like a routine that never stops.
Right.
What about outside the East? Is there anyone else that you're looking at that could, oh my God, this team could make some noise?
So my favorite team, and I loved them last year. I love Colorado. I mean, how can you not just love watching them play? I watched, what was the game? And they threw up a 7th spot. And I was like, oh, they were just putting on a clinic out there.
Yep.
They're fun to watch. And then another team out here, Montreal, right? They're on a roll. They look great. So Colorado, McKinnon and Rantanen, you could just go on and on. Landeskog, how are these guys this good?
Yeah.
They're fun to watch.
Yeah, they're set. They got them on a nice little bargain. They got a lot of guys coming up through the system, so they definitely look like they're primed for the next big dynasty run.
And then they got Burakovsky, so who doesn't love that?
Yeah,
a lot of Caps connections out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who was aside from your dad, of course, who was your favorite player growing up? Was there one player that you sort of gravitated to?
Honestly, this sounds terrible. No, I did not. I did.
Love that.
That's terrible.
No, I love that.
I didn't watch a lot of hockey growing like that. As a Caps fan or as somebody, not because I didn't like it. I think for me, I also just had so many other things going on. I like this activity and that activity that I always enjoyed going to games. I never really followed the team, which is weird. And then when I first got the job at NBC Sports Washington, they're like, you need to know everything. And they're like, you know it all, you've been watching. And I'm like, yeah, but not like that. I would just go to games and just with my girlfriends and just hang out or whatever. I never really followed any, but maybe DC, I loved Jeff Halpern, just a local guy.
Sure.
But I can't tell you why. No reason. That's a great question. And
I believe Halpern is the only NHL player or only player to ever make the NHL from Maryland. I'm pretty sure.
I think
Potomac, like Potomac, exactly.
Yeah, and I think I like that local connection. I thought he was cool, I guess.
Have you been to his donut shop in DC?
I have
Astro?
not. I have not.
I went there like God, it's probably almost like 8 years ago now. But my dad took me there once when I was visiting him. He had an apartment in DC at the time, and I think it was still just like a little truck at the time, or maybe it was like a small storefront, but we went and got some donuts. I think the one I got was like a maple glazed donut with like bacon bits on top. It was actually really good.
Yeah, and doesn't he also do fried chicken?
Yeah.
Right? It's like donuts and fried chicken.
Mm-hmm. I didn't try
he has
chicken,
the food trucks. Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't been, but I like had been looking at that menu, and it's just like, yeah, this sounds good to me. I would definitely go.
Yeah, I haven't been either. I've always wanted to, just never had a chance.
You got any questions for us before we wrap up?
I don't think so. This was awesome.
Yeah, no.
Next time we gotta do this like over beer or a glass of wine or a bottle of Mayomi.
Absolutely.
Down. And if your production crew has some spare hours, we'd appreciate that too. Kidding, not kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of work, man. The video portion of all this stuff is, before I got on here, I was with the guy who's helping us, and I'm like, you're doing what with what camera and this angle and the audio. It's a lot. And you guys know, like now you have to know all this stuff, right? And one last thing is like when I started in broadcasting, whatever, 7 years ago, it was like, I'm the talent. I show up and I talk about hockey. And now it's like, yeah, you can't do that anymore. Like you guys know how to produce all of these things now.
Yeah, we learn as we go, and they'll both.
God bless YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes, YouTube and tutorials. But you guys look great. You guys sound great. You have a great setup. So I think you guys are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, we appreciate your time, and if you ever want to come back on, just let us know.
You let me know, and I'm in.
Got it. Well, thank you.